did come back from Moscow yesterday, and I was up for 26 hours straight. Rather than read a talk and fall asleep as I read it, I thought what I would do is just talk about what I've done over the last 2 weeks, not so much as a talk, but as enough of an introduction so that you can ask some questions and help me stay awake. So it begins, interestingly enough, last Monday, a week ago, I ran a panel with none other than Barbara Fox's daughter, Susanna, who, I don't know if anybody of you here know her. She works at the Pew Internet Center and is an expert on e-health. The second panelist was the president of somebody who runs was the president of Patients Like Me, which is a website for people who have ALS or now Parkinson's and I think multiple sclerosis. Disclosure, I'm an investor. And the third panelist was Jerry Nadler, the congressman from New York City. And this panel was not at a health conference. That was sort of the point. It was at something called the Personal Democracy Forum, which is, of course, about online democracy. Unfortunately, probably 90% of the people there were Democrats, and they're not as diverse as they should be. But it's all these people who use Facebook to elect people and think they're really cool, it's government 2.0 and so forth. And I told them I wanted to do a panel on healthcare. And the guy running it said, oh, you mean like healthcare reform? No, I want to do how the internet is going to change healthcare just the way it's changed politics. That is quite apart from who's president in the sense of politics or what happens to our benighted healthcare system. What are people doing from the grassroots upwards to change healthcare? This was pretty hard for the guy running the conference to understand. It was also something of a challenging notion for Representative Nadler. And at the same time, I mean, this is the kind of panel I love, because if you tell people stuff they already know, it's not that interesting. It's much more fun to see if you can change people's minds, get them to see parallels they might not have seen, and so forth. I wouldn't say we were totally successful, but it was a great start, and overall it was a great conference. The second day, in the morning, the CIO of the United States, Vivek Kundra, announced a website called, it's been out, sorry, but talked about data.gov. The U.S. government, bless it, is going to publish complete details of every IT system contract it has. So the statement of work, the vendors, the amounts, and whether or not the project is on schedule, successfully completed, penalty payments, whatever. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing. And to these guys at the Personal Democracy Forum, it made total sense. The notion of publishing your genome online or access to your own health records still needs a little more explanation, but that's where we're heading. So I'm not going to do every day. But the next thing I did was go to Moscow, where the notion of the government publishing anything online is still a fantasy. And one thing I love about Russia is how much it's told me, or taught me, about the United States. Because everything we take for granted. It was so nice to hear the Pledge of Allegiance to a country that we believe what it stands for and that mostly tries to live up to its ideals. Russia is still pretty dysfunctional. McKinsey came out with a report recently that business in Russia is 25% as effective as business in the U.S. Now, I don't know exactly what they're measuring, and it doesn't really matter, but everybody in Russia who heard that sort of chuckled and then sighed. So I got to Moscow, where the thing that paid my way was a board meeting of a traditional systems integration company, which I wouldn't say this in public, but as I just did, is probably about 25% as effective as the equivalent American company. But that's who it's competing with similar companies, and it's a nice outfit. So that got me to Moscow, and then it turned out, the board meeting had been planned sometime ahead, turned out that the Eurasia Foundation, which I sit on the board of, was co-sponsoring a so-called Civil Society Summit to complement the President Obama, President Medvedev summit that took place in Moscow this Monday and Tuesday. It was a real scramble to put this thing together, and I said, yeah, board member, I'll come and see if I can make myself useful. And they said, great, we want you to be on the press and new media panel, of course. And I said, well, I'd really rather be on the healthcare panel because press and new media, they sort of know about new media. Healthcare, I think I could be a real troublemaker. So, in fact, the Friday before that, I had met someone from Procter & Gamble, which owns Johnson & Johnson, which I'm sorry to see is not on your sponsor list, but I'm sure you're trying. I got in touch with that guy and said, can I talk to the person who runs Pampers in Russia? The Russian word for diapers, for what it's worth, is, in fact, Pampers. It's like Kleenex here. And amazingly enough, I called this lady and I told her, I'd like you to come to our healthcare working group, which is basically going to be a bunch of doctors and hospital people and then some public health experts from the U.S., but certainly nobody commercial. And the second guy I got was a man who runs a drugstore chain called 36.6, which in centigrade is 98.6, in other words, human body temperature. This was sort of the usual Russian experience. I went through somebody who called his secretary, and this was, again, a connection through an advertising company I know. And amazingly, the answer came back that yes, he would come to this session, which sounded great, but I didn't actually believe it. Because I didn't think he really knew what he was getting in for. It wasn't simply show up for half an hour at some panel, but come and be part of a working group. So I insisted on talking to the guy, and finally at 10 p.m. on Thursday night, I talked to him for 10 minutes and told him what was involved, and he assured me he would come. And it was great. And amazingly enough, on Monday, he actually